I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting here from the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, which is produced by Circle, South Yuba River Citizens League. This is our 16th year of Wild and Scenic. It is a significant event to bring together filmmakers, the storytellers, and the everyday action heroes who are really out there making a difference. And their stories we often don't hear, but we really need to hear them. I'm excited to have Chantal Rondeau here with us. Her film is Journeys to Adaka, and came here from Colorado to join us. And thank you so much, Chantal, for being here at Wild and Scenic.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the Maidu and Nisenan people for allowing us on their traditional territory. I'm grateful to be here.
It's good to have you here, and thank you for acknowledging them as well. So is this your first Wild and Scenic Film Fest?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes.
So tell us, well, welcome first of all, and tell us about your film.
The film is called Journeys to Adaka, and Adaka is a arts cultural festival in the Yukon territory, which is right beside Alaska. And it's about 7 artists, from, a carver to dancers. So there's a variety of different kinds of performers and artists, and it's about our journeys to find ourselves as Indigenous people of Canada, and really going into what we had to face in our lives, whether it was residential schools or racism. And it's about finding our light. So Adaka in Southern Shoshone means finding your light. So it eventually goes to all of us are preparing for this festival within the film.
How did you what was your motivation behind this in the first place, and the importance of telling this story?
I'm a character in the film, so I am the producer of the fashion show that's at Adaka, and it's the largest fashion show in the north. I have a keen interest in Indigenous issues, especially in my home territory. So when it came down to being able to tell my story, I really wanted it to inspire the young people in our nations. We all go through really difficult things as Indigenous people in North America, especially, a lot of people not knowing that we still exist. So it was really important for me to have a really positive and beautiful story out there. The film is absolutely beautiful. Every single part of the film is really a positive and beautiful ending.
So as far as finding your light, and I haven't heard of Adaka before, so that's beautiful, and it's I love knowing that, because we talk a lot about, especially recently with groundswell, and how important it is for each of us to find our light and know what's driving us. So how has finding your light been a core part of the work you're doing? And you mentioned in the fashion show, for example, with the festival.
Well, my work specifically is in media. So I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a broadcast journalist. A lot of the passion that comes from my life is to create these positive stories about our people, so that the dialogue changes about our people. Specifically in the U.S., to saying, I think with Dakota Access Pipeline, it was the first time that people were like, oh, Native people actually are there, and we have great concerns, and we want to be protectors of the earth. So creating these stories is really important to me. In terms of the fashion show, we have a huge history of our clothing, and part of the show is, the first part of it is traditional wear, and then the second part of it is contemporary. And a lot of our contemporary artists still use the products that were used back in the day, hides and furs. There are specific artists who also use sustainable fabrics. And one of the things that we do as Native people is, when we kill an animal, we use every single part of the animal. So as you can see, my earrings are caribou bone. And we use all of the parts of the animal, and to really showcase our history on stage was the reason that I wanted to produce the fashion show.
Well, and to Chantal, part of, in finding your light, the importance of the stories is because it gives us a sense of reference for where we came from, right, and the shoulders that we stand on. So many people, especially our youth, I think these days, it's, you know, and I work a lot with women, and the story is like even just knowing our own soul's purpose and what that is. So in working with youth especially, because you mentioned that, what are some of the things that you share with them, and or even in that guidance to help them even connect with that within themselves? Because I think there is a lot that gets lost. Just even in our cultures in general, about even knowing our true essence of that.
Our culture has a huge history of assimilation. There was residential schools put in place, there were assimilation policies put in place so that our people would lose their culture and lose our language, lose so much things that were essential to who we are, as an excuse for genocide and for taking our land. So what I tell young people is my experience as a young Indigenous woman, what I went through growing up. And a lot of that is I was faced with a lot of racism. I was in a French immersion school, and I was not in a school with a lot of Indigenous people. So I was constantly put down to the point where I did not tell people what my identity was. I think that it's very important for youth to know the history of colonization, and also what you know, a little bit older generation like me or people who went through residential schools went through, so that they too can feel a sense of all of that history, but also ways to feel proud and the advancements that we're making in our cultures, and bringing back our language and bringing back our dancing and bringing back our regalia.
Right. So in the film Journeys to Adaka, what are you hoping are the takeaways? Because Wild and Scenic is very driven by action and solutions. And of course, the stories are one of the ways that we help to influence and inspire that. So, and being a part of this film, what do you hope the folks that are going to watch it this weekend will take away with? And then also just how, as far as, I was going to say support, but just also, I guess, more so how that applies to us as individuals and as a community, and the actions that we may take.
I think a takeaway from the film will be, you know, actually realizing that there is a thriving, living community. And it's just not the Yukon that this is happening with. This is happening all through Indigenous countries around the world. We're really taking a hold of who we are and what our history was and who we are as modern Indigenous people. I think that, you know, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were like, you know, why are you at an environmental film festival? And one of the things that, you know, who we are as Indigenous people is that we feel we are protectors of Turtle Island, which we call North America. And we really feel like we have an interest in making sure that this land is taken care of. So you see issues like Dakota Access Pipeline in Canada. There's Muskrat Falls and several pipelines that are trying to go through. So one of the things is to really understand that we are invested in protecting this land. It's just who we are.
Right. Even here locally, where we are in Nevada City and Grass Valley County, Grass Valley in Nevada County, you know, there's this effort to stop the Centennial Dam, because it actually is on lands of the Maidu, for example, as well. And so they've definitely been a community that has, you know, risen up to say this isn't okay. And so there's actions, you know, and looking in your own backyard to see what's going on there and how this applies to our Indigenous communities as well, and being in the know about that, and as far as how to support. So Chantal, the theme this year is groundswell, and how we're really converging together and rising up. So how does that apply to you this year especially? What does that mean to you?
'Cause, I think, 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 I think there's something happening in the world, not only with Indigenous people, but with a lot of people. We're a little bit more conscious of what's happening. I know that the U.S. is in a difficult point at this moment, but I think that there are a lot of people who are really active in, making sure that social issues are taken care of, environmental issues are taken care of, women's issues are taken care of. So for me, I'm really, as much as what's happening in the U.S., I'm really excited about what the future holds. With Indigenous issues also, is there going to be a turnaround with Indigenous issues in the U.S.? So it's really interesting to see, where we are in history and what's going to happen.
Right, I agree. And why is it so important for folks who are watching this to come down and be engaged in a festival like Wild and Scenic?
I believe because there's a plethora of films that people could be, from. I just saw The Frogs, and I had no idea that there was that problem.
I knew, exactly.
And the fact that there's a whole bunch of different things, different kinds of films about activism, environmentalism. And I just think that there's, there's any kind of film here. The fact that there's an Indigenous film and there's a couple of Indigenous films.
Right.
I think that it's really cool to see what's happening with this festival, and I'm really interested to see some of the films.
Thank you for being here, Chantal. Chantal Rondeau. The film is Journeys to Adaka, and stories shape our lives. Stories shape our lives, and they, in a sense, then shape our culture. So they are so important that they are told. And thank you so much for being part of the festival and for taking time to be here. I'm Elisa Parker. This is the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, and thank you so much for being with us, and we will be right back. Thanks.